Welcome to Beyond the Comfort Zone, a show that helps you step out of your comfort zone into a place of growth and learning. Today, I am interviewing Amanda Sutt from Rock, Paper, Scissors. We get to learn a whole lot about her. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me.
Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You did.
Okay.
Good job. I was very impressed.
It's become a goal of mine on these to make sure I get everyone's names right without always asking. So Amanda, I'd love you just share a little bit about Rock, Paper, Scissors. Tell our listeners a little bit about it.
Sure.
What do you do? And I have to, with your name, where'd the name come from? I think that's important.
Absolutely. So Rock, Paper, Scissors, we're a branding and marketing firm, and we've been around since 1986. So we've seen and done a lot of changing ourselves. And to that, our name has even changed over time. I joined in 2005. It's a family business. And I like to even say, like, when I joined, we were still doing yellow page ads. And like, I talked to young creatives and they're like, what's that? Oh yeah, that thing in the corner. Yeah. Yellow pages. So that's something we don't even touch on anymore. So our core focus is, as I said, branding and marketing. So we really try and help our clients come up and develop marketing that has a plan. And that's a core piece of this. Don't shoot from the hip. There's so many channels out there, so many things you could do. How do you really focus in on having a plan? And then that brand piece of it, of who you are as a company. What does that look like? How do you be consistent? And that's not just a logo, because I can do a logo, but like, how does that translate to your website, to how when somebody calls and other people answer the phone, does it sound consistent? So it's any touch point that a person or employee has with the business is where we kind of define branding. So it's a lot. So you asked about our name. It is a fun name. And it alludes to that we really, really, really value play. It is an important part of learning and being creative. And also the idea of rock, paper, scissors. There's some strategy. There are international competitions out there for it. But it's that sometimes you have to experience it. You have to just do it. You have to do, and it goes to our website domain name. It's, you set up the game, you go 1, 2, 3, shoot. And then you just got to try it and see how it goes and go from that, learn from it and move on to the next thing, because not everything is absolutely set out there. So it pulls in a lot of the things that we believe, and it's memorable. People remember rock, paper, scissors. We have fun games with our business cards. Everybody has 3, and on the back of it, they have a picture of their hands in either a rock, paper, or scissors. So we can actually play with people when we hand out their cards. But that came about 15 years into the existence of our business. We decided to rebrand. We wanted to grow beyond our founder, which was my mom, and we wanted a brand that wasn't just based on a name. And it was a little creative. She called it Sin Design. Her name was Cynthia. So it was at least a pun on it, but we didn't want that to be limiting. We're also merging with another component of our family business, which was my dad's part of the business, and wanted to set ourselves up for something that would have a lot more longevity beyond the founders. And so that was a big part of what it was. A lot of brainstorming, some field testing, market research to see what would sit. But that's kind of the quick, short answer of where rock, paper, scissors came from.
Well, that's just amazing overall. I love the 3 business cards. To get to play rock, paper, scissors as you're handing out a business card, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So definitely unique and different. One of the things you said really resonated with me about your name tied to marketing in general, which is, 1, 2, 3, shoot, right? So in your field, it's not an exact science. It's much more of an art. What is that like, getting to work with so many different customers and fine tuning and refining, trying to find the right strategies for them?
And it's never the right, because it keeps changing. A lot of times what we're trying to help clients do with is really decide, and it goes back to branding, and this is why we do branding and marketing at the same time, is who are you? What are you comfortable with? Because there's so many different ways you can market. I have some people who love social media. It's like, all right, let's figure out how do you really leverage that? I have other people who hate social media, but they would rather go network. All right, let's figure out something around that, because then you're comfortable, you're confident. And so there's a personal side of it as well. But then there's then then there's two more sides once you get into it, is how do you feel doing it? And then what is the data actually telling us? And we want to look at both, because we can't get all of our answers from the data, but we'd also be really foolish if we didn't measure what we're looking and doing, because you can spend your entire day marketing yourselves out of business and spending money and time where you shouldn't. And so having those two components really is important. We talk a lot about, and anytime we do a marketing plan, we actually start our sessions with a SWOT analysis. And it's all about, how does everybody feel? Like, what do you think are, it's critical, what do you think are your strengths and weaknesses? Where are the opportunities and threats out in the community? And then after we do that, then we go look at the data, and then we bring it all together. And we always look at it that way, because there's so much. I always find our most innovative pieces having that open conversation about how somebody feels, because there's something that you'll hit on. You're like, oh, that's interesting. And then you get curious, and then you get playful with it. And that's where you can really start to differentiate yourself in the market. So a lot of what we do is also based, what I'm talking about here is relationships. We get to know our clients really well. We want to understand what that business is. And so I don't look for projects, I look for partners. And that's a little bit of a different approach when we're starting to set up and work with somebody, because we need to know our clients and their businesses really well in order to be that partner and share the insights and observations. If I just come in cold and I look at like a marketing plan without knowing who you are, it's not worth any of our time. But if I can have the opportunity to get to know somebody, then we can do that. And I really kind of set up marketing, and when I talk about it with clients, is like, you have an accountant to help you navigate the tax world, and you need that partner who knows how to do that. And it's better if you've been working with your accountant for a while and they understand your business, they'll give you better advice. Same thing works with marketing. And it's, how do you really start to cultivate that relationship with a marketer to navigate that? Because we work with clients where some clients, we are their entire marketing department. And what we're seeing more and more is option two is they have in-house people, and we provide the counsel to help them navigate and make sure that their nose isn't on the table and they've gone in the wrong direction. So we can be that, whoa, come back. That's not getting you results. Stop doing that. Let's go do something else, kind of a thing. So
you work in both ways then.
Absolutely. And we flip-flop with clients too, because sometimes your team members change out. And when they change out, sometimes you don't, well, not sometimes, you never want to rush into making an immediate choice to fill that gap. And so we give our clients some of that space of like, okay, find the right person. And we even help them find that right person to bring in, so that they're not making a bad choice after a bad choice just because of that desperate side of it. So we add some stability with that partnership too, because we can flip flop in and out of that technical work and that strategic work.
Very cool. That's great that you guys can flex like that to really be the partner to your customers that they're looking for. I'm curious, what is a common myth about either your business or the marketing world that you'd like to debunk?
Oh, I love this question. This is probably my favorite thing ever, is how many clients come to us who've never done structured marketing. And what they'll tell me is, we don't do marketing. And it's like, if you're in business and you actually sell anything and you've been successful and you can make a living at it, guess what? You're marketing. And there's a lot of things that we do that are just natural, or it's good customer service, and it's generating this word of mouth marketing. And that is the most powerful thing out there. And people undervalue the interactions, the relationships they build, and what word of mouth marketing it is. They're like, oh, I'm not marketing. The amount of times, if I could have a jar full of pennies, I might have $100 in the last like 3 months of just hearing people say, oh, I don't market, I need a marketer. I'm like, yes, you do. You do market. And I want to say you're doing a good job, because if you're coming to me, you've been in business for a while and you know what it is. So that's probably my biggest myth, is people market more than they realize. But it's also a broad term. Like, people don't think about, there's so much, they're thinking of it as advertising. And advertising is a component of marketing. And advertising isn't right for every business. There's different ways to connect and engage with people. You have to, in order to advertise and, do media spends, you got to put a lot of money behind it. And that's not always the wise way to do it. So I gave you two. Two
I like
myths
it.
that I like that are just always, I'm like always floored by it when people talk to me about it. But I'm very patient because I realize it is just a general perception that our just the world has about marketing. And it's like, okay, all right, let's have some basic conversations about what marketing is.
I think it is that there's so many misconstrued or misconceptions about marketing in general, right? Like this idea that sales and marketing are one thing and they're not, they're very, very different
Mhm.
animals, but they're often considered under one umbrella and one thing.
Yep.
I think which ties exactly to what you were saying before, what people don't realize they're doing already,
Mhm.
and what that actually is. Now, can you tell me about, one of the most influential people in your life and how they pushed you outside your comfort zone?
Oh yeah. Well, I probably had to start with my mom because she's the whole reason she started this business. And the fun fact about it is I told her I was never going to work for the family business, and now I am running it. So that's always amusing. But I always really looked up and admired what she did because she chose, I'm just starting even in college. When she went to college, most women at that time went to school to be nurses or teachers, and she did not want to be either. And made some really like bumps in the road in her family by choosing to be an economics major, which was unheard of in the early 60s. And so when she graduated, she went to become the first female branch manager at a chain of banks up in Michigan. And that's tough. Like she had a lot of paths to forge for herself because she was a woman in a man's industry. And she got cut, and so she worked extra hard to push through. And it always the story of people coming up to her saying, you need to stop working so hard, you're making us look bad. That's what would happen. And it was like, wow, okay. um so from that standpoint, I got to watch her as a trailblazer to say, no, I want to have a career and it doesn't matter what my gender is. So that started it. But then fast forward 10 years later, they moved to the Atlanta area. And when they did that, she decided she wanted to kind of get out of what she had been doing. And she was an artist. And she had done a lot of watercolors, and she went to the Art Institute because she's like, I want to figure out how to do prints of my watercolors. And when she went there, she discovered graphic design. And this, all timeline wise, this was pre-computer graphic design. So that wasn't even something that was on her radar before that. She's like, oh, I can take my economics and banking and had some marketing experience there, and I could take my artists and I can blend them together, and I can use both sides of my brain. And so she was
Wow.
willing to take some risks to do that. And then when she graduated, the first little Mac SE, that little black and white computer, first came out. Her professors told her she was crazy to buy a computer to do this. And 6 months later, she was there teaching them how to use the computer. So she was just this trailblazer who just basically said, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or done before, I'm just going to go do it. And so
Like
that was,
she shot through the comfort zone.
oh yeah, there was no comfort. If she was comfortable, I think she was uncomfortable, to say the least. So she did a lot of trailblazing. And as I said, I didn't plan on joining the family business. It ended up being a little bit of a fluke, because I went off my degrees in theater, theatrical design. I do sets and costumes, so not performance. I do the design side. But when I graduated, I was starting my freelance career, and she just turned over a couple team members, and I was like, hey, I can come part time and help out while you, like what I talk about doing for my clients. I'll come let you, I know how you guys do the business. I've done summers and things like that. I'll help out, and then while I'm ramping up my business, you can find a replacement for me. And so 16 years later, I'm running the business.
Amazing how that works, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
A little bit. Oh, wait.
Yeah. And she even challenged me even more. And I mean, just because of that, I got to try so many different things. But 8 years ago, she was diagnosed with cancer. And when we said, go, go on medical leave, whatever you need to do. And so I stepped in. They're talk about stepping outside your comfort zone. I stepped in to run the business. And we had one great last year with her, and it was awesome. I got to learn everything that I needed to. I, of course, wish she was still here doing all this, but
So sorry.
I would not have pushed myself to do that or figured out what kind of leader I could be. So not only did she blaze a trail and that I got to witness, then she kind of left the trail so that I could continue to blaze it in front of her. So, I mean, there's a lot of other people that influence me, but at the end of the day, it's her. Like the amount of things that I got to learn from what she did and learn from the legacy that she let me take is so unique. And I wouldn't have done this otherwise. I wouldn't have decided to go start an agency. And I have very, very strong passions about what kind of agency I'm building because of what I watched her deal with. And a lot of it deals with how do we build a more equitable place for not only females, I do have a female team, I'll just go ahead and admit that, but also creatives. We see a lot of, oh, you're creative, you can just whip this together. And it's like, no, it actually takes time. It takes a lot of process and practice and us learning to stand up as a creative industry, stand up for what we're worth. And so those are a lot of the things that she has given me that I watched her struggle with. And I went, you know what, that's what I want to take on. Those are big, important problems, not just selling widgets for our clients, but this other, I have two paths. I have, how do we help our clients do greatness? And then how do I shape an industry where creative people don't burn out? Because that's a lot of what we see is we see people stay in the industry for 3 to 5 years and they're gone. And that's hard. That's sad. And so how do we build a culture where they can thrive?
That's amazing. And your mom sounds like an amazing woman. I mean, and a role model for you and for others, I'm sure. And then for you to have that gap and just jump in. It sounds like a huge leap outside your comfort zone. And here you are 8 years later.
There was some reluctancy. Absolutely. It took me a good year of just sitting in it. And I was running it like she ran it initially. And then I had that moment of like, I can't, she's not here. She wouldn't know how to answer this. None of her past knowledge could answer this question because she doesn't know where I am. And that was a big shift of like, I need to decide which parts of what she did I will hold on to. And then I have to be okay letting go of the rest, because otherwise I'm going to tank it, because she, as I said, she's not here to make those decisions. It's not her company anymore. It's mine. And it took a good year to just like even wrap my head around what that meant. So it's a little messy sometimes. And that's even, I even see this because I do business coaching too, and I help other leaders. I see them as they take over for other people, where they're so key on holding on to legacy. And it's like legacy can be a part of it, but it cannot be the core of a business moving forward. You honor it, but then you gotta figure out where it's going from there.
Yeah, you can't hold on too tight to history, because we've always done it that way. Really can cause a huge problem for a business.
Huge.
But being as self-aware as you are, I mean, that's an incredible leadership quality, to be able to see what to hold on to and what to flex on. So that's impressive, Amanda. Speaking of impressive, what's your biggest failure and what did you learn from that experience?
Oh, lots. I think the one that I can kind of wrap my head around, at least in a way to share knowledge with, I'm not afraid to take risks. I'm not afraid to try something new. But the one that I'm still working on learning from and figuring out how to do is actually video. We actually brought in a whole department, or it was somebody who had ran his own video agency, came in, said, I want to partner. It's like, great. And this was about 10 years ago. And I was like, yeah, we need to be able to do this. And this was part of one, knowing what our core values were, and he wasn't quite in alignment. So we had a lot of bumps and frustrations from it. So from that standpoint, it was a failure there because it didn't take off. But what it gave me was this insight into how complicated and expensive video can be, which I knew. But I also realized we need to come up with smarter, cheaper solutions for clients so they can do this faster. It's not going away. And so I've never replaced what happened there. One, I learned the values, always hire values, find your partners. Partners have to have your same values, not just your employees. So that was the lesson number one. But lesson number two was the thing that I keep challenging my team to with today is we can do video in so much easier, cheaper ways. It's more important to get the message out there than for it to be the most spectacular, elaborate thing ever. And I'm saying this as a theater person who's used to big, spectacular, elaborate things, and not everything has to be that way. And a lot of times you're not going to get a good return on it either. So it was that was the thing that I wasn't expecting from that failure over time of like, I just kept sitting in that question of like, okay, how do we help our clients tell their story in video easier and faster? Now, fast forward to 2 years ago, when everybody went on Zoom, we were a lot more prepared because of that failure 10 years ago, that we were therefore, we were leading most of our clients' online meetings on Zoom because we had been exploring Zoom in way different ways 4 years ago. Saying, okay, this is great. This is quick. This is easy. Continuing looking for new technology and how do we work through it? And so we ended up keeping a lot of our clients engaged with their communities and their customers a lot more because we said, hey, we'll do it. We'll run it. You guys just show up and talk and we'll make sure the technology is there. So it's interesting to see like how that first just blow up in my face thing, how much more I learned from it, and how I'm still growing and evolving. And I'm still cleaning up the same mess. There's still parts of that. You're like, oh, you have those little like trauma moments of like, oh, somebody wants me to do something like that. Oh, that was like that project. It was like, it's not like that anymore. But yeah, I think that was a big, probably what I hold as my own personal. There's been other ones in the business, but that was one I led the charge on. So I will follow that sword.
Well, it sounds like it got you to a conclusion that took the world a lot longer to get to, honestly, because now, I mean, I'll send people videos off my phone just going like this for a second, right? Or we're doing this through a Zoom. Whereas a podcast, 3-4 years ago was expensive equipment and craziness.
Exactly.
So I think it is a very different ball game that you probably foresaw a lot faster because of that failure.
Yep. Absolutely.
If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Get a therapist and work on your mental health. That would be my biggest advice. And I say that and I joke and laugh about it, but it's really the biggest thing I would do because I so undervalued what I was owning as a leader and putting my team first and taking care of them and supporting them. And now I look, as I've taken better care of myself. I was always really athletic, so I always worked out, but I didn't respect giving my brain a rest, and working 80 hours a week is not always going to get you where you need to go. But having that level of self-care is really important. Mental health, like how do you focus on that? And granted, my 18-year-old self and the culture, and we were all in at that point, we didn't talk about that. That wasn't a part of it. And that wasn't even that long ago. But yeah, that would be absolutely what it is. And that's a big part of what I talk about, even with my team, when I talk about that culture and healthy culture, is like, how do we take care of our heads? How do you value rest and not feel like you should be doing something else? Because you could always be doing something else. But sometimes just doing nothing is exactly what you should be doing.
What's one lesson that your career has taught you that you think everybody should at some point in their career learn?
To value your team and don't be afraid to ask for help. And I think that's a big piece of, and your team can be anything. It could be people above you, below you, or whoever you're working with. It can be your clients. It could be staff members. It could be vendors. Whatever that is, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to say, I don't quite understand that. Explain that back to me again. Because a lot of times by getting curious and admitting that you don't fully understand what's going on isn't a mark of not knowing or being like inadequate is maybe a better term. But being curious and having somebody re-explain it sometimes can be one of the most valuable things you can do, because you're framing to them that there might be a gap that they didn't know was there.
Well, and even in yourself being curious, you can Ask the right questions, you learn a lot, right?
Yep. Yep.
Now, I have learned that almost every leader has their favorite productivity tool or hack. So I'm curious what yours is to share with my other listeners.
Sure. I bleed Michael Hyatt's full focus planner. It's my absolute favorite tool, thought process knowledge, and I don't use it to 100% of the way he does, but for those of you who don't know who Michael Hyatt is, he is a productivity thought leader. He was in publishing and then realized that he focused so much on this, and as he was getting out of publishing, people wanted to hear what he said, and he continues to build tools and talk about how do we think about things. He has a great book called The No Fail Meeting on how to make sure meetings are productive and fun and something you look forward to and not dread. And so like all of his things, but the full focus planner is really impressive tool because it's a hybrid model. It's using your online calendaring tools with a printed planner. And it's just such a good way of every day you get to reset. Every day you get to pick your new big 3 of things you want to accomplish. Every week you have 3 big things that you want to accomplish. And you bring in what my favorite part, it's a complicated tool that I like. You asked the right question, is the after action review, which was developed by the Army, which is, or some people call them postmortems, but it's so quick and easy. It's what worked, what didn't work. And then there's a KISS. What do you keep? What do you improve? What do you start? And what do you stop? And it's such a great way to self-assess every week and go, okay, what worked? What didn't work? And it helps me feel in control of what I'm doing. And in this digital world where everything is chiming and binging and all this, I know I can just look down at my paper planner and there I can refocus and then look back up and go, no, my focus is on this. It's on this. So that is my go-to tool.
And it is an awesome one. I've seen some of his tools, and you are right. They are plentiful in content and ability to help. So, but you have it, executives who are having a hard time to prioritize and stay focused. Here's a great tool for you to look at and consider.
Absolutely.
Now, what is one question that you wish I'd asked? And how would you answer it?
Oh, that's a good one. I think what drives me every day, because it's that every day of like, what is the reason to get up? Because at the end of the day, helping clients can be exhausting because it's never my problem that I'm solving. And so a lot of it comes down to, and I say drive, but it's also passion. Like what really motivates me to go beyond what I want to do and get up and do more. And it is helping people, but it's helping people who want to grow and who don't want to be stuck in a reality that they've been born into or stuck in or whatever that is. And a lot of that comes from my mom, who was a trailblazer and chose to figure out what she wanted, and she just did it without doing that. And I want to be able to help more people be able to do that, where they have that reality and that dream. And I also don't want to, on my own side, give so much of myself because of that passion. So there's a balance, there's a fine line. One of the things I used to joke with my mom about is I used to call her tragically generous, which was ironic when she got sick, because yes, she gave so much of herself that she really did not take as good of care of herself as she should have. So so that's my passion, is how do I help people do that while also preserving myself? And I find it's curious when I work with other leaders, and I work within my marketing business or within my business coaching, when you can help somebody figure out that core focus and passion, it makes so many other decisions so much easier to make, because we'll go back to that when we're stuck and saying, okay, how do we solve this? Or you're feeling like you're disconnected from things, like, okay, let's go back to that. And so I do the same thing for myself when I'm feeling disconnected on that. Like I go and say, am I following this? Am I on my spectrum of it? Am I in the middle, or am I leaning towards one side or the other? So I also just really enjoy finding out what people are passionate about, because it's always so unique to also then find out how did they get there. What was that journey that they went along to get there? So yeah.
Yeah, that's why I love doing the show, because I get to hear so many people's journeys and where they're going and what they're trying to do. It's a lot of fun. So I totally get that.
Yeah, exactly.
What is something that you would like to try in business or in life that you haven't yet, that's outside of your comfort zone?
Oh, there's a lot of things. That they're the little gleams of things. Like, oh, that would be interesting. Oh, that would be interesting.
You can name a couple.
But I think the one that I probably sits with me the most is rock climbing, which I know is like out of nowhere. But it's one of those I've always like, oh, that would be neat. But then I've never acted on it. But I always come back to, oh, that would be fun to do. But I'm totally afraid of heights too. Just part of it. So probably like indoor rock climbing would be one of those. So yeah, it's more personal, but I think there's probably like a deeper journey that I need to go on in order to start to overcome that. I got some layers and levels of whatever's going on there. But yeah, I think that's the one thing that I always come back to, because a lot of other things I'm like, oh, let's just go do it. Let's go try it. Like, but that is the one that I keep stopping. And I won't go and do it because I've traveled all over the world. I've traveled by myself. I, took over my parents' business. I started my own coaching practice. So I'm not afraid to try new things, except rock climbing.
What's holding you back?
Oh no. I don't know, because it's funny, every time I've like gotten close to doing it, like I've gotten an injury or I ended up being like, I literally had scheduled a session to go do it. And 2 days beforehand, I found out I was pregnant and they're like, you can't go. I was like, okay. So I don't know.
Well, that's a convenient excuse.
I know. I promise I didn't plan that one on purpose, but I don't know what's in the way of it. There's always something that seems more important. Maybe that's part of it, of that balance of challenging the work side and the personal side. So maybe I just need to go do it.
I'd say, maybe since we both live in the same state, I'll come take you and we'll go do it sometime.
There we go.
That I can tell you, I've been there, done that. That one is not my thing. I'm afraid of heights, but not in the same way. I love to go down with gravity, just not against it. So, but
maybe I won't do it. You just talked me out of it.
No. I think it's great to try. That's a good one for you. I'd rather jump out of a plane though, personally.
Oh.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been awesome, learning more about you, more about your business. For my listeners who want more information on rock, paper, scissors, where they go?
All right, you go to 123shoot, SHOOT.com. And then we're also on Instagram and LinkedIn if you want to find us there, but website's a pretty easy place to find us.
Okay, 123shoot.com. There you go. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.